Welcome to Tailor Made. I'm Bryce, and I like to tell stories. One way I like to tell stories is through role-playing games, and right now what I'm doing is turning an adventure that I've been creating and running for players into a zine. What we're seeing here is the cover art for the zine, or the first draft of the cover art at least. You can see I'm not very good with titles or names of things, so there's a placeholder title right there for now. What I've done is set up the space that I have available for art, leaving room for the title and my credit at the bottom. First, let's talk about my relationship to art. I think of myself as mainly a cartoonist. Art that is a vehicle for telling a story. I'm getting better all the time, but I think for the most part, my art is functional, and that'll have to do. For tools, I'm using Adobe Photoshop here to draw this cover art. I'm using a Mac and a Wacom 3 tablet. It's pretty old. It's at least 10 years old now. I'll get back to some of the more tools I was using. This that I'm working on right here that you can see is kind of a false start. I wanted to draw the house and I thought this would be good. And here you can see that I've just changed text entirely and picked a different angle and a whole different art. That's perfectly reasonable. I am much happier with the one I decided to move to anyway. Back to the brush that I'm using here. It's this kind of speckly brush. It's called Kyle's Ultimate Pastel Palooza. I think it came with Photoshop. I am not certain. I was trying to find where I got it before and I couldn't. So I just found it in my list of brushes in Photoshop. I'm still relatively new to using different brushes. I'm just trying it out. I like it so far, so I'll probably keep going with it. The screen capture of this is done with OBS, which is a free tool. And lastly, I used Adobe Premiere to edit the video. So at this point, I've blocked out more or less the image that I want to ultimately draw. I then promptly changed my mind and had another idea for a different way to look at it. You can see I keep going back to this original art and weighing my new idea. I had this idea of being able to look straight down the wall to try to make it look really tall, like they were going to fall down off the roof. The problem that I ultimately decided was that unless you're falling into a swirling vortex of something, it was hard to make it, at least in this simple style, look high up. So I ditched it and went back to my original idea. The story of this zine, the adventure that I'm trying to put into this zine, is that the region that this is set in was conquered ages ago by goblins and hobgoblins. The humans are now a subservient lower class, and they've become accustomed to the rule generally, except for the players. The players are part of a newly forming resistance, and they're on a mission from this resistance to break into a fancy house that's occupied by a retired hobgoblin captain named Captain Jex. And the previous occupant of the house is thought to have hidden magical texts somewhere in the house. And the players are going to break in and steal them. The zine is ultimately going to have maps of the house and of the city, information about the occupants, the contacts that they might reach out to get some more information before their heist, and some rewards that they might find if they decide to rob the house of more than just these magical texts. My players are still going through it as of this recording. It's been about 6 sessions so far. That includes a session 0. And they also had some encounters before the adventure proper that they could run at level 1 and just get used to combat and things like that. Notice I said level 1, that implies levels. it sounds like I'm running it for D&D. I am testing it out in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. However, there's not a ton of combat or specifics about how they should engage with the world. So it's really system agnostic. They're doing a lot of sneaking, lying, stealing, that kind of stuff. So a system that supports those things, also that supports magic and fantasy elements, is useful for running this. If you're saying to yourself, I would like a copy of this zine when it's ready, how would I do that? Well, it depends on when you're watching it. If you're watching within the first month of this video coming out, I've just launched a Kickstarter. The main purpose of the Kickstarter is to be able to print physical copies for people who want them, but it'll also be available as a PDF as one of the rewards. And if you want to not pay anything for it, I'm eventually planning on releasing the whole thing for free as a PDF only, but that will be made available sometime after the backers get their rewards. I will put appropriate links down in the description, including links to the Kickstarter, and whenever other options for acquiring it are available, those will also be linked down in the description of this video. That's just about it. I know that this particular art could use a little bit more work. It is plenty good for starting the Kickstarter. I think it might end up getting some tweaks and additions before the final zine, but we'll see. And you can see I've given it a title, which is fine. Coming up with names for things and titles is one of my least favorite activities, so Hobgoblin House Heist will have to do for now. The final zine might end up with a different name. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.